So hello, I am delighted to be spending time today with the Reverend Summer Albayati. Um, so Summer, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm the Reverend Summer Albayati. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Congregational Life Field Staff for the Pacific Western region at the UUA. It is good to be with you. So my spiritual journey, I have to reflect on sort of my spiritual journey to Unitarian Universalism as a Muslim. And I believe that I embody both. I'm a Muslim and I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And I grew up what one would describe as unmosqued, so to speak, right? The religious training was in the home, and that's sort of that's across the board. You would find that with probably within the Muslim community that, there is a value in your family teaching you. And I grew up with such a blessing in that my father, who's Iraqi, was a musician and singer, and used to attend with his mother back in Iraq. He was from Baghdad, um, Sufi rituals. And
Hmm.
so even though he wouldn't describe himself as Sufi, right, his mother was a part of Na'amiyya order there and used to take him to rituals. And that's where he learned all the sacred drumming and how to use his voice. And so when I think about this, right, he got that training and learned sort of the rhythms, the Sufi rhythms that help one go into a trance. And he would see his mother, witness her go into a trance, and she was thought to be a healer in the community, both she and her brother. And on his father's side, they were just Muslim and didn't necessarily participate in Sufi Islam. So because he had such a beautiful voice as well, he would be the substitute adhan, the one that does the call to prayer, right? And so that also helped him with his training and training his voice. And Quranic recitation also helps with training the voice. And so I grew up with a family in which music and dance and these sacred rhythms and using also just the drum with the voice was my reality. And that was a way in which I experienced my spirituality. And I refer to it as aesthetic Islam, right? Like the aesthetic of Islam. I was immersed, it was embodied, it was just a part of who we were. And it was a spiritual experience for me, so that when I was at the age of 12 and I just picked up the drum and started playing it. Before I knew it, I was performing with my father on stage and experiencing a really spiritual experience for me as a drummer, holding space for everyone else to experience that spiritual um, time and journey within what one would call a concert. And they would be a concert that would go on for 2 hours. So you can
Hmm.
only imagine what the journey was for people at that time. And there is such a thing thought of in Arabic classical music, which is what we played, that does take you on a journey. And there's a journey that goes through to get you to an emotional expression where you can um, experience emotions, a longing. People in the diaspora might be longing for the homeland, right? And so the motherland, so to speak. And so there you might experience all of these emotive um, feelings that will um, help you to sort of transform what you need to sort of feel, release, let go. It might be past traumas, what have you, right, that come into play. And then and then a feeling of empowerment at the end. And so and there's this symbiotic relationship with those that are participating. And so for us, it would have been audience, right? And so they kind of help shape whatever concert we were presenting. And so there could be something that we rehearsed in rehearsals that they were not rehearsed in rehearsals, and all of a sudden we're doing some sort of song I don't think I've ever played before, and yet was able to do that, right? So so I grew up in that experience. And so it was very interesting to me to then get a call to ministry. And I thought that was Christian. And I said, I'm not Christian, I'm Muslim, right? And so what does that mean? And so I challenged the divine or the universe, or however you want to say. I think of it as, God, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, you find me something that is going to be more pluralistic, because for me, Islam is really about interfaith, right? And be careful what you wish for. Be careful when you challenge the divine, because all of a sudden the Unitarian Universalist congregation that was down the street from me, I had no idea, became my home congregation. So it was really sort of this journey in which I experienced the beauty of Islam and embodied, right, an embodiment of it, and understood it to be all about social justice. That when I got that call to ministry and entered my first UU congregation, I read the principles and the sources, and I was like, oh, that's like Islam. So for me, it was very interesting to just sort of find that and go, wow, okay, so there's this, why does this sign say church on it and it doesn't have a cross, right? Like, so those so it became really interesting to sort of, open the package and find out what Unitarian Universalism was all about, and then find out that it was very much in line with Islam. So
when did that happen? When did you find Unitarian Universalism? At what stage of life?
So my son is 22, and he was 4 or 5. So a little bit ago, but not, I was already an adult and had a kid, and so and it was the fact that I got that call to ministry was very interesting. It was I was living in New Mexico, and I was teaching at the local middle school, and I was on Sacred Mount Taylor, and I got this call to ministry, and I was like, I don't know what that's about. So yeah, sure, okay, sure, God, whatever, right? And I just knew I was going to go to seminary, and then moved back to California, and shortly thereafter found my UU congregation, so my home congregation. Yeah.
Wow. So you've spoken a little bit, but I'd like to go deeper into the ways that Unitarian Universalism and Islam support each other, harmonize, are in concert with one another.
Yeah.
In your experience?
So I would say, if we just take the words Unitarian and Universalism, right? Unitarian would be one God, right? The unity of God. Well, that is very much so in line with Islam, who, that sort of opposes a Trinitarian thought, right, of the divine. Universalism, right? All will be saved. Islam also believes that everyone is like all religions, are a part of what we call people of the book, right? Back then, in pre-Islamic times, and when Islam came, they only knew of, Christianity and Judaism, right? They didn't really know about all the others. But there are those that propose that had they been known, they all would have been included as well. And so if we sort of look at that, in the Sufi Islamic tradition, you would say that there are many paths to the divine. So universalism kind of holds that, right? That all will be saved, and there's many paths to get there, that it's not just one path. And that is how sort of pluralism and plurality of Unitarian Universalism and Islam intersect, because those beliefs are also a part of and embedded within Islam. And that's why you find Muslims who will say, for instance, Jesus is in the Quran, and Mary, and these stories and all the different prophets, right? Jesus is thought of as a prophet. Well, in Unitarian Universalism, I believe people aren't necessarily thinking that Jesus is God unless, they come with sort of, and they hold on to that religious tradition from their background, right? But it's the same thing. We think of Jesus as a prophet, or for some, a really, really wonderful man who taught us something, right? So, yeah.
Are there places where the two rub? Places of discomfort or dissonance? Are there spaces, or are there spaces in which you feel you can't bring the fullness of yourself, and you're sort of we've been calling it trans-religious or bi-religious
right.
self?
So, I mean, that's a really interesting question. So when I talk about sort of the principles aligning with the same values in Islam, I believe our principles are very much so focused on justice. And Islam was, I believe, and others believe, right, that was a liberation, a liberative theology that came at a time to bring more justice and to the pre-Islamic Arabs, right? And so, for instance, Islam, the Prophet would speak about freeing slaves, right? And so, because slavery was in practice back then, we found also that he spoke of women's rights and the fact that they should have they should be able to inherit, right? At a time when we didn't find inheritance for women happening in, let's say, Europe, right? So because there was such a focus on justice, right? For the fact that Unitarian Universalism valued justice and valued bringing our world into a more just world that was embodying liberation and working towards liberation for all. For me, that was really, really wonderful. And it was that part of Unitarian Universalism that really jived for me. I was like, okay, here we are. Yes, exactly. And so I think where things can sort of hold tension and are in ways in which Unitarian Universalists don't necessarily learn about Islam or go to more orthodox ways of Islam being practiced in this country, right? So instead of reaching out to Muslims that are a part of various groups, whether they have a mosque or not, that are more progressive in line with Unitarian Universalist values, right? That we purport are more progressive and liberal, right? Instead of seeking out Muslims that hold those values, we tend to just go to the local mosque, which they will also hold values that are justice making, but they may live them out differently because of more of an orthodox view. And so then we think that that's the only way of Islam, right? That's the only way, instead of understanding that the majority of Muslims who maybe grew up in this country may not have attended a mosque, right? And as we get more and more immigrants, they tend to go to mosques because they become sort of like their cultural centers and the way that they can um, make sure that their children are connected to their cultures, right? But Islam is being practiced out there. Just, Muslims are not a monolith, just like, you know, Christians are not a monolith, right? Just like those who practice Judaism or paganism or Buddhism, right? They're different sects and different ways of practicing it. And so I think where tensions lie is when Unitarian Universalists don't seek to understand Islam from different perspectives and think that it's only one way. And so that has been really, really hard as a Muslim UU minister to understand that there is a long tradition of not not seeking that out, not understanding that that there is a place for progressive Islam, and it is here in this country and all over the world. And, I also have to recognize that as somebody who's also Arab, right, from, a descended from Arabs in Iraq, right, that there is a long history of a socialization process that has occurred in this country in which the media has played a part to shape people's views of Muslims and Arabs in particular. And so that's why we see a lot of anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, Islamophobia, all of that present, and even present within our congregations, in that we may not want to learn so much about Islam or even recognize that there are very progressive Muslims out there. So, and then so that's where sort of the tension lies, right? Like how are we um, how are we understanding Islam and understanding that Islam is all over the world and also not just Arabs, though it came from the Arab community, right? And how are we understanding all those nuances and how they do connect with Unitarianism and Universalism and Unitarian Universalism together?
I'm just sitting here thinking, I wish there were resources. I wish there were, you know, classes, opportunities for Q&A, to expand our knowledge. There's a way in which, in the formation process, we have to take all of this Christian history and New Testament. We have to take a certain, but then it comes to world religions and it's like one class and you survey the whole thing. So are there resources? Are there places that we could go to learn more, to build relationship, to be in authentic relationship with the progressive Muslim community or progressive Muslim individuals for that matter?
Right. Well, so I mean, the first thing that I think of is Muslims for Progressive Values. I'm a wedding officiant with them. And so when I'm performing weddings, I do traditional Islamic weddings, and I also do interfaith weddings on behalf of them. And so people will call me imama, which is a female imam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a lot of resources on their website. So a little plug for MPV USA. And they do a lot of human rights work out in the world. And so I would say that's one place to start. There are queer Muslim communities, and a lot of you congregations may not know that they exist, but they do. And for instance, I know in terms of Muslims for Progressive Values, they've created a human sexuality curriculum, kind of like Our Whole Lives. So at least there's that. The Women's Mosque of America has just launched a new Quranic literacy program. And so they are sort of beta testing right now, and I'm participating in that with my son just to get a feel for it, and to understand their curriculum and what they've developed. But I think in terms of Unitarian Universalism, right, we have not done a lot, I think, to create those resources, and so that may be missing, and it may have to do with the fact that there's been sort of suppression of the history of Unitarianism and how it grew in Europe, and under the Ottoman Empire that really sort of protected it so it could flourish, right? Because Islam understood and understands that those who have different religions, they should be able to practice their religions. And so there was always that protection for any religious communities within Muslim majority countries, or if there was like something like the Ottoman Empire, right? And so and so I think we've sort of suppressed that history, and we have the book called Children of the Same God, and um, I think that book is one place to start for UU congregations to read that book and really have a conversation about it and find out how Unitarianism and Judaism and Islam all sort of intersected, and to understand sort of that story and really reflect on how that has affected UUs, how we've been affected by not knowing that history and not incorporating that history into teaching members of congregations, religious professionals, right?
Right.
Those of us that hold that work. So that could be one place to start.
Well, I think you gave a couple places to start. That's fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I will say that I think it was last year, Church of the Larger Fellowship had me teach a class on Islam and Unitarian Universalism. So that was kind of, felt for them very groundbreaking because that hadn't been offered yet. So so that, so there is that, there are things out there, but they're being sort of, I think, massaged and created, and you just need to access them. So yeah.
That's super exciting, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'll enrich our faith. Enrich our faith
Absolutely.
quite a bit. Well, do you have any final thoughts or reflections that you want to offer?
Hmm. Final thoughts or reflections. I think, you know, it's important. I think it's important as we learn about other faiths to really sort of experience it, embody it, and not just learn, oh, there's 5 pillars of Islam, for instance, right? That we need to go deeper, and we need to go further and really learning as much as we can about different faiths, so that we're not just staying on a surface level, right, of understanding. Going deeper will help us with our own sort of spirituality and figuring out and being able to identify what is our own spiritual path, right?
Right.
Within Unitarian Universalism, so that those of us who do hold what did you call them? The something,
Bi-religious or
yeah,
trans-religious, yeah.
yes, identities, right, will feel also more welcome.
Yeah.
Um, because the more that we understand various religions and how they intersect in terms of pluralism, right? And how we understand that helps us to then be able to understand who is coming into our congregations and why they might be there. Some may be coming because of religious trauma, and others may be just coming because, wow, that sounds good, right? And I like
Mhm.
what y'all are doing, and you have a great mission, and I love that. And that's very much in line with my values that I learned and that I take from my religion. So
Well, thank you so, so much. I really appreciate the time and the openness with which you shared. And it's just lovely getting to know you a little better too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much, Reverend
So,
Elizabeth. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Blessings.